Welcome to this new how-to. In this how-to we're gonna look at the Diamond DA40. The Diamond DA40 is a small airplane but also has the ability to set the flight plan manually. Currently we're located at Lisbon Airport. As you can see, it's in the middle of the center, right? So it's not in the middle of the city center, but it's in the middle of a city, which is, I would say, pretty cool, because if you, I would say, do the approach, you're flying pretty close over the houses, and then you suddenly see the runway, and you can make a landing successful, or not, of course. So the aircraft is currently located at one of the parking spots. So let's go inside and start the engines. As you can see, it's it's located at a parking spot, which is, I would say, meant for jets. So probably they want us to depart pretty soon. So the aircraft is currently completely in shutdown. So what we can do is we can open the checklist, and as you can see, for this aircraft the checklist is, I would say, pretty extensive, which is good. So we can go to all the steps, right? We can go to the before checks, make sure that the power is off, engine master switch is off, etc. So it's set to automatic. This is set to normal. Electrical equipment is off. Fuel quantity check. We can check the fuel, although pretty hard. Equipment was off. That's what we already checked. Power is set to idle, right? So that's good. We don't want to go, I would say, full gas into the terminal. This is also set to off, so we can continue with the electrical master switch and switch it to on. So not yet start, but on. That gives us a lot of alarms, as you can see, but it also gives us the ability to see, okay, how much fuel is in the aircraft. Probably it's still on the phase where it's gonna figure out how much it has. Although here it is, you can see it's say half loaded. So then we're gonna switch it off again, and then we're gonna start the engine. So park and brake, right? You can either release it and then reset it again, or you can do it manually using the mouse. Control stick, it's here, right? So we can move it. Works perfectly fine. Then the trim wheel, we need to check if it's in the in which state it is. So we can either say, okay, hey, I want to set it in nose down, but in this case we need to check that it's in TO, which stands for takeoff. This one is again set to neutral. This one is set to off. So let's switch again the electric master to on. And then we need to acknowledge the button because we want to acknowledge the alerts. Next thing is we're gonna switch on the engines, so we need to make sure that the strobes are on. We need to make sure that the power level is set to idle, which is the case. And then we need to check, okay, hey, wait until the glow indicator is set correctly, which is the case. And then we can continue by setting the master switch, which you can find here, to start. Hopefully it will work. Looks like we forgot something to do, right? So if that doesn't work, then you again need to go to the full list to make sure that it's correct. So I'm going to switch this to off. So the master switch is set to on. So I'm trying to figure out what we forgot to do. Pre-flight checks, we did everything right, so we made sure that everything is on or off. Did we do this? The EQ swap. Here it's set to automatic. Power level set to idle. Yep, that's all done. Strobe lights until the glow indicator, and then what? Extinguishes. Which glow indicator, right? You might ask. If you would look at the screen from close by, maybe that's the option. No, doesn't show us much. So let's give it a try. You see something is blinking here, so maybe we need to switch this to on. That was it. We simply didn't set the correct button. So now we set the engine master to on. We can't start the engine. And then we can continue with the rest of the checklist. We can check the orientation panel. We can switch the master engine switch or avionics switch to on. We can switch on the lights, right? And that depends, right? So in this case, I'll put on taxi position. Pilot heat is not really needed, and landing lights are also not needed for now. Navigation lights, we already switched them on. Landing lights, not needed. And then we can check if the RPM for the engine is approximately 890, right? Plus or minus 20 RPM, and currently it's at 880, so that's fine. So we're not gonna start taxiing yet because we're gonna program the flight, and that's something you can do using this nice Garmin GNS 430. So to program the flight, we of course first need to use one of the online tools to schedule the flight. In my case, I used onlineflightplanner.org, and I scheduled a flight from Lisbon to Braga. So I will push this one, and then we need to add the waypoints and airports. And you can do that by using this button. This button has multi-functions, right? So you can press it, then it will start, I would say, blinking. It will have the small button which you can turn, and it has the large button which you can turn. So I will push this in, and I will now drag it or turn it to the right side. So we're gonna search for L, and then we're gonna use the large knob to move to the right. And the next letter we're gonna push in is P from Papa. Do the same thing again, and then again. The P from Papa, and the next one, and then go to the T from Tango. So LPPT, that should be Lisboa, and as you can see, it already says, hey, this is correct. It shows us the northern and western, so I'll say the exact location of the airport, and if we're happy with it, we're gonna press enter. So after we did that, we can continue with the next one, and the next one we're gonna push in is inbound. So I'm gonna move again, and then turn as long as we go to the E from India, and then the N from November. then the B from Bravo. Whoop, a little bit too far. No. And then the O from Oscar. And then the... I don't think this is the O from Oscar, it's probably the... This is the O from Oscar. Oh. And then the M from Mike. And that's fine. So we hit enter again. And you can see that it now calculates the distance from the existing waypoint, which is Lisbon Airport, to the next one. So then we're gonna move again another position because we need to add Porto to the list. And it's Papa Romeo Tango. Yep. So Papa, whoop. And then Romeo. And then as last one, Tango. Tango, and then we will hit enter again, and then it will ask us, okay, hey, what do you want to do, because I found multiple waypoints, so which one do you want to use? And that sometimes is a tricky question. However, since we're in Portugal, we know that we need to use the LP one, so we're gonna move down one position and then press enter, and as you can see, it's in a reasonable distance. If you pick the incorrect one, then this the distance between, I would say, the previous waypoint and the next one is probably too large. For example, if this would be thousands of miles, then you know, okay, hey, I selected the incorrect one. So as last one, we're gonna add Braga, which is Lima. And then Papa Bravo. And last one is Romeo. Hit enter again, and then we can push the knob, and then we schedule the flight. So in total, the flight is 183 miles. That's the CUM column, and the distance module shows it from waypoint to waypoint. So that's all nice, right? So what are some other options you can use? Well, there is always the set direct course to option, and that can be used if you're in the middle of a flight and you want to set a direct course to a specific airport or waypoint. Then you can press this button and it will allow you to say, okay, hey, I want to specify a specific location. For example, when you press it, it allows you to search for an airport or specify an airport, right? But that's not what we're gonna do right now. So I'm gonna press D again, and now it will show us the active flight. So it will show us, hey, this is the current waypoint and the next one is this. What are other options? The procedure button. This is pretty useful because the procedure button can be used for multiple things. One of the things is you can, I need to press the button again, you can set the departure route, also known as the SID, right? So the SID, if you don't know it, it stands for standard, no, not standard, that's the other one, right? So I'm always mixing up those two. So the standard arrival route, so that's the star, and the SID stands for standard instrument departure routes. So that will be used to use your instruments to do the departure. So we're gonna press enter here, and then it will ask us, okay, please specify the departure. And the departure always depends on the runway, right? So for example, if you select runway, you see that you can either select runway 3 or 35, That depends, right, which one is being instructed once you file the flight plan. So for now, let's say we want to use runway 35. And then we can go to the departure again. And the departure, this one is always the end point, or the end, I would say, yeah, the end waypoint of that standard instrument departure route. So if you would, I would say, look at the map, which you can see here, that's the VFR map. Probably if we will say, okay, hey, I want to have this one, I want to use the departure route. Let me see, is there another one? Sometimes you can already see them on the map, because you can see, for example, these things, and that sometimes clarifies in which direction you're going. Bonko. Well, let's do a wild guess. I think this is stands for north and this for south, so we want to do a north departure, so it's fine. Transition, there's no transition needed. Can switch on this mode, because then you can also see what happens as soon as we press, let's say, load. This is what it does, right? So while our previous flight was straight out, now it completely replaced our flight, or not replaced our flight, it modified our flight. If we would go now to the flight plan again, you can see, hey, it has now added several waypoints, right? So if we would go here and then, oh, not this one, sorry, flight plan. It's this one. It has inserted the SID before the normal route. So that's fine, right? We can leave it, or we can change it, because you can still make modifications. You can still go back to it and say, okay, hey, the departure route is not the one I wanted, so let's change it. So we're gonna change it to, for example, this one. Gonna enter, and then we say, okay, hey, we're fine with it. But here you can see a different runway, right? So keep that in mind, that you really, that I would say, my recommendation would be to first make sure that you select one of the departures and then verify if it's really the runway which you want to use. So in this case, you can see that the departure only has one runway compared to the other one, which had two. So let's say, okay, but we're happy with this one. Runway 21, say loads. And then when we go back to the flight plan, you will see that it has changed, but it's in most cases easier to see from here. So here you can see that we're first gonna fly over the sea, then back into the country to Inbom, which is the waypoint. So it's fine. You can use it. If you don't like it, you can still change it. One of the things which you can do is you can use skyvector.com, which is a website which contains all the routes, including the SID and the star routes, and then look, okay, which one is the most correct one for, I would say, your scenario. I already mentioned it a few times, the star route, which is the used for approach, and you can also configure that piece, and you need to go to the select approach, and there you can, if you're, it depends on the destination airport. If you've got a large destination airport, you're able to select the approach here. So in my case, I don't have an approach because there's no real approach, so it's probably a pretty small airport. If I would put in another airport, then I would have options here to set the approach and the transition. Both are being instructed by the ATC, I would say, when you're close to the airport. As soon as you know that, then make sure that you configure the settings here and then load the settings. What will happen in that case? In that case, well, I need to go here. If you would go, I would say, completely down, instead of the destination airport, you will see, I would say, the star route being here listed. And that makes it easier because then you can use the star route to do the approach to the runway which is assigned to you. Again, it's not possible for all the airports, but for some of the larger ones you will have the option to do that. So here ends this how-to. We're not gonna do the flight itself, so maybe we're gonna do that in the future. I don't know. Keep an eye on the channel, I would say. If you've got questions or comments, then use the comment box below my video. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then consider to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.